Welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name is Adam Hanlon. I'm here to Wetpixel, and we'd like to thank Aquatica for sponsoring this episode. Aquatica produce a range of housing, supports, and accessories for underwater photography. And please head on over to aquatica.ca to check out what they do. And we'd like to thank them again for their support for this episode. Also, as always, I'm joined by my friend Alex Mustard. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Adam. Nice to be here.
It's nice to see you. And obviously, we thought when we were discussing potential topics for this, we thought an interesting one would be how to create a pathway to success in underwater photography. And it's obviously a common sort of topic. So anyway, I thought I'd ask Alex that first. Go on, Alex. How do we do it? How do we build a pathway?
It's certainly a question that I get asked a lot by a lot of aspiring underwater photographers. Is what's the kind of career path for an underwater photographer? How do you develop as a photographer? Because in other genres of photography, there are very clear career paths. If you are an aspiring advertising photographer, you might become an assistant in a studio, work as a photographer's assistant, learn the ropes, and then do jobs, and then strike out on your own. And similarly in other realms of photography, say photojournalism, you may start off at a smaller publication and move up through them. And underwater photography, it seems almost that you need to arrive as a fully formed pro and then launch yourself. And that's obviously not how it works. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about that pathway that the majority of underwater photographers sort of try to follow and try to develop this morning. So that's kind of what I wanted to chat about. For me, I sort of, when people ask me this, I sort of say it's a 3-stage process. I mean, you could divide it up as much as you want, but those 3 stages work, I think, for most people. I think the first stage, which is really important, is to make sure that your work is up to that professional standard. And I think because it's a small world, the world of underwater photography, if you go big too soon and suddenly start doing stages 2 and 3 and trying to get everyone thinking you're the best thing since sliced bread, and you're not, then you may blow your shot before you've actually got the skills to the level. So it's really important to get your quality of your work up to that level, and ideally do work that can stand alone in the marketplace. And I say to people, if you look at a diving magazine, for example, and you say, my pictures are as good as these, there is no room for you in the market. You need to look at a diving magazine and go, my pictures are better than these objectively, not just in your head, or they're different to these. I can offer this magazine something different to what they've got already. So the key thing is to there be a justification for you to be in the marketplace, and you need to be able to do that reliably and with quality, not just I've got one photo that's as good as this series in a magazine, of which they're all of that high standard. I've got one. You need to have as many at that standard to be able to do that job.
So Eric Cheng, one of the founders of Wetpixel, when he was asked this question, often used to tell people to go and get a real job. And the logic here, it sounds, a lot of people that are involved in underwater imaging, they start off as a background as diving instructors or dive master, dive instructors, whatever it may be. And the problem with that is, whilst that's obviously you're in the sea, you're diving a lot, that's all good, you're seeing lots of stuff, but typically those types of career choices don't lend themselves to generating a great deal of income. And often that means that limits things like the ability to purchase cameras, sometimes limits the ability to travel and build portfolios, probably more importantly. His advice always was to go and get a proper job and then come back to it later on. I think that's an interesting perspective, because a lot of people assume that the career path into underwater photography is by becoming a dive professional. And actually, I'm not sure I'm probably fall into that, but I'm not sure that's probably the best way of doing it. I think sometimes you're better off actually kind of generating a pot of money that you can use to then develop your portfolio to build your brand, as it were.
I think that's sensible advice. But what I would say is, because there is no set career path for underwater photography, each person can find their way to it. And that's where I think this 3-stage process is kind of irrespective of that. What I would encourage people to do, though, is, you don't you're unlikely to be able to be in a position to have amazing international coverage within your portfolio when you're starting out. However, whatever your background in diving will be, you will have something that you can do a lot. Whether it's local dives, whether there's a destination that you typically like to go to dive, and make sure then that you have the best portfolio of that thing. When you're starting out, there's no point saying, right, I'm going to have, amazing shark pictures, amazing whale pictures, fantastic coral reef pictures, amazing kelp forest pictures, pictures from, Galapagos, Malpelo, I want to have PNG coverage. You can't start like that. You start by finding one thing that you can do really, really well. And, if it means, okay, I get to do my local dive, where I live, and I'm going to have the best photos ever of that subject and that site, or the subjects that I see on that site, that will be very publishable if you've done stuff that people haven't done before. Trying to start out by getting the coverage of everything is never going to work. So actually, working with those means is really important. And I think, but you want to make sure you've got that quality of the work up there. Because without that quality of the work, however much you tell people use my stuff, they're not going to use it if the quality is not there. So then the second stage is, once you've got the work to a good standard and you've really worked on those things that you have the opportunity to do the best ever on, is then I think at that point is when you want to start building a demand for your photos. And usually people come and ask me this question when they're most of the way through stage one, in that they're taking some good pictures, but they probably haven't pushed the opportunities that they have to the maximum yet, but they're already running on to stage 2 and 3. And it's not like you need to wait years and years between them, but I think you do need to make sure that you've got that work good first. Stage 2 is developing a demand for your photos. And the area that these days everyone instantly seizes on is, right, I've got to build a big social media following. And, it's easy for us to be sniffy about social media. And there's no doubt that having a big social media following opens doors for you, however it's built. Even when, there's plenty of examples across, maybe not so much in underwater photography, but in other branches of photography where people have paid to have big social media followings, and as a result have got work on the back of it. There's no doubt that happens. However, I do think that the majority of people offering work are a little bit more savvy now. But in the end, if you have a social media account with hundreds of thousands of followers and each post you make has tens of thousands of likes, people are attracted to that for their brands, So as a result, a really big social media following can make a difference. However, I do think the majority of photographers these days think social media is far more important than it is. And, ultimately, if you want to work as a photographer, I say this to lots of people, it's not just about generating money, it's about generating profit. And you need to do things that are profitable. The pro in pro photographer is profit. It's not in generating money. It's in generating, doing activities that generate profit for you. And social media is generally very bad at that. Social media is very good at generating likes. I know for a fact that, Tesco, our local supermarket, doesn't take likes for payment for groceries. It's also can be very time consuming. And while it can open doors for you and it can build other things, the social media in itself is unlikely to be generating money. It might get you some free stuff, because a brand wants to be associated with you. But does that really make a big difference, to your operation? I think, you need to keep it in its box. It is important. It's very important. But you don't want it to become the focus of your energies.
I think you want to look at it as a cost. I think so many people see it as being an output. It's actually a cost. Marketing has a cost, and part of that cost is investing time and resources into social media. And you need to decide how much you're prepared to dedicate in terms of resources to that cost. It's not going to really, it's not, the benefit is unlikely to make you a lot of money, but you do need to market. So you now need to figure out how you're going to balance that cost versus marketing benefit. But look at it as a cost rather than being a benefit, and that helps to explain
and it's really important to keep in your mind what the goal of it all is, and the goal is to develop a demand for your photos. Not someone else's. Lots and lots of the pictures that I sell, other photographers have as good a shot, if not a better shot. But because within the market, there's a demand for my photos because, I've worked hard by taking lots of good pictures over the years to develop a demand for photos taken by me. Then my picture might get chosen because someone goes, well, I know this guy does a good job. I know, and as a result. So I think there are certainly things that as important as social media to develop a demand for your work. And, part of it comes to the quality of the work, but we talked about that already. I do think that this is where contests can play an important role. But if you want contests that are going to enhance your reputation, you have to choose the right ones. There's no point writing to someone saying, well, I came third in the, the International Cup of Underwater Photography that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
If you're having to tell someone about your competition success, it's not the right competition. You want competition success in the competitions that all the potential people who are going to invest in your photography are watching. So if your competition has no media profile, it's not got a resonance within the community, however big the prizes are, that competition is going to do no good for your career path. Because people are going to say, oh, I don't care that you came third in the, you were the winner of the, the wide angle with an Olympus camp tree in XYZ competition. Because I saw underwater photos in the newspaper, on the TV from this competition. And that's the ones that have hit me in my world. So, so look at the competitions that get the press coverage that are going to be seen by people outside the underwater photography community, because other underwater photographers aren't going to give you the, all the underwater photographers pay attention to the underwater photography competitions. But the big ones that reach beyond our world are the ones that the potential employers look at. And success in those competitions is a fantastic springboard. Offers come, thick and fast from if you have big success in those competitions. The downside of the competition approach is that competitions are subjective. And even if you have the best pictures, you can never guarantee winning because of the way the judging process works, etc., etc. You can have amazing shots, and then 10 other people have very similar shots, not quite as good as yours, and suddenly your amazing shots don't seem rare and exciting. It's like, oh, everyone's shooting this, and they don't finish as high as they, so there are factors you can't control within competitions. However, if you've got good stuff, over time, the balance of results will come your way. And the big ones open incredible doors. There's no doubt about it. And those things, I can definitely plot in my career how certain competition successes have led to very obvious career opportunities. And like any career, it's like rolling a snowball in the snow. The more times you can roll it around, the bigger and bigger it gets. And, every success leads to another opportunity, which can allow that snowball to get bigger and bigger until you get that critical mass. I think there are other opportunities to build a name for yourself. And hard work really comes into lots of them. And so, taking on a variety of smaller jobs when you're getting going, some of which may not be very well paid, I generally discourage people from taking on completely unpaid work. You might get paid in kind, you might get paid in opportunity, you hopefully will get paid in money. But there's lots of opportunities if you're prepared to work hard. And if you put good work out there, people will notice it. I wrote for lots of low-paying publications when I was starting out. It taught me to be a better writer. It taught me to be more efficient. It taught me how articles worked. And then when the bigger paying opportunities came along, I was, in a much better place and ready for them. And so, but also all that output that I did was also part of setting up who I was and developing those opportunities. So, taking those opportunities really helped. And all that demand, builds into a demand for your photos. So even if your photo is no better than someone else's, there's a specific demand for your photo. And then the third stage, which kind of allows this to work as a career, is to make that business sustainable. And I think this is where people tend to go wrong, is that they think, okay, now I'm a pro, I can do everything I want, and they don't think about the costs and the benefits from a financial point of view. And ultimately, it's a very small world. You need to build good relationships because there are only so many potential employers and opportunities for earning, and you need to look after all of those. And if you let any of them slip, you're going to reduce your potential income. And also you need to make sure that you're always on the lookout for new opportunities, because there's no doubt that the potential earning opportunities for underwater photographers over the last 30 years have changed hugely.
Yeah.
And that, every 5 years, I would say there's almost a reset. And if you are constantly working an out of date model, you will slowly lose your ability to earn. And if you can adapt with the times and find yourself in the areas where is income, you can generate things. But ultimately, it's about that careful management of, you can only, underwater photography work is low paid. The only
Yeah.
way to get decent income is to do lots of work. You can
Yeah.
only do so much work in a day, in a week, in a year. So as a result, you need to make sure that the work you're doing is profitable, and it
Yeah.
doesn't come with both big time costs and big financial costs. It's easy to dream up things you can do, but you
Yeah.
need to make sure that you're getting the money in. And no one's going to become rich being an underwater photographer, but you can definitely earn a sustainable income if you manage the business sustainably.
You have to look at it in terms of, as a business decision.
Mm.
This is what we're saying, and it's ultimately, you're going to make an investment in time and money in terms of your business, and that needs to show a return. So it's all well and good saying, right, I'm going to fly off to the far ends of the earth to capture pictures of this incredibly rare animal, which may well be a personal ambition of yours, and that's fine. That's a great thing to do. But unless you've got someone at the end that's going to pay you the money that you spent getting that picture when you get back, it's not really a wise business choice. You might be better off staying at home and taking pictures of stuff in your home environment you mentioned earlier that you can sell to your local newspaper or whatever the outlet is. So it's not all glamour. It's not all about getting on airplanes and flying to the far-flung ends of the earth and spending months taking pictures of exotic creatures. It's a much broader picture than that, and you have to look in terms of this approach for investment and what you're going to receive in terms of financial benefit.
Well, and yeah, typically as a stills photographer, you get paid for selling pictures. You don't get
Mm.
paid for taking them. And
Yes, yes,
that's where you need to put the effort into selling the pictures, and
yeah, yeah,
and find the fun, find the passion in that.
yeah,
Because it's and then you obviously that will give you the opportunity to take more.
yeah,
So I think,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's quite a decent setup. Is that three-stage process of getting
yeah,
the work to that professional standard, and
yeah,
so that it's exploiting gaps in the market, to
yeah,
develop a demand for your work by building a profile and a reputation for high quality, original, good work,
yeah,
through contests, through output, through social media, and then wedding that to a sustainable business that can allow you to flourish. And because ultimately, the longer you can survive and in the world, the bigger you can roll that snowball, and
yeah,
the better it all works.
yeah,
And if you're not sustainable, you're not going to last long enough to build the contacts, to build the portfolio, to build the opportunities.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Alex. So a great place to look for inspirational content is on Alex's website, which is at amustard.com. And that's a good one of the way you mentioned output, Alex. That's one of the way Alex outputs his images. So it's worth seeing what he shares on there, definitely. So thank you very much again, Alex. I'd like to thank our sponsor again, which is Aquatica, and thanks very much for their support. And we couldn't do it without them. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Please feel free to add any comments to the comment section below or drop us a like if it's been useful. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.